Welcome to Crime in Court. We are reading through the Delphi trial transcript, Indiana versus Richard Allen in the homicides of Libby German and Abby Williams. And this is now the state's case, part 17. And we are going to read the beginning portion of First Sergeant Christopher Cecil. He is with the Indiana State Police and he is the commander of the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force or something like that. So let us get started, please. Please hit that like button and let us begin right where we left off. So we finished the second part of Dr. Roland Kaur's testimony. He was the forensic pathologist who did the autopsy, and then we went off the record at 12:39 p.m. and now we're back on the record after the jury took their lunch. So, let us continue. Mr. McClellan says we'd be calling Mr. Cecil next. I've got him in the courtroom ready to go, Judge. The court says, "Okay, could we get that screen off of there since it has news?" Okay. Oh, sorry, Judge, I'm sorry, says Mr. McClellan. Court says, thank you. Mr. McClellan says, I hope that doesn't pop up. Well, Judge, we've stipulated, I guess before we bring the jury in, we've stipulated to the extraction and the reports from Mr. Cecil. Court says, okay. Mr. McClellan says, I plan to use this one and I defer to Ms. Auger, but I can leave that popped up. Court says, that's okay, that's fine. Mr. McClellan says, that's the first exhibit I plan to use. Court says, okay. Mr. McClellan says, and I'll turn down the sound. Okay, yeah, I mean, that way we just don't have any inadvertent media story about this case. Mr. McClellan says, I agree, Judge. Court says that we've been trying very hard to keep from the jury. Mr. McClellan says, I've been failing miserably with technology during the trial, so court says, all right, is the defense ready to bring the jury back? Mr. McClellan or Mr. Baldwin says, we are, Judge. Court says, all right, let's go, gentlemen. And you had indicated that that particular witness's testimony is like a couple of hours. Mr. McClellan says, I think it's going to be lengthy, Judge. Or direct? That's at least two reports to go through. I don't know if direct will be a couple hours. I think total will be. It'll be lengthy. Court says, okay. So is the court anticipating us calling additional witnesses after him? Says Mr. McClelland. The court says probably not because it's 2 o'clock. McClelland says court says aye. Mr. McClelland says that was our hope, Judge, because we're not really prepared for that. But court says, all right. Well, Mr. Baldwin says we're ready then. Court says, well, then you've kind of forced my hand. Okay, all right. No, I mean, the morning was a lengthy morning for the jury. That's why we took a little bit more of a break for them to kind of decompress a little. And I appreciate that counsel for both sides has sanitized those types of photographs as best you can for the jury. That's difficult testimony to hear. Mr. McClellan says, this is going to be dense material is the other issue, Judge. Court says, okay. McClellan says, and I want the jury to have an opportunity to absorb it all, and I guess is really the issue. Court says, okay. Bailiff says, all rise. Jury now enters the courtroom. The bailiff says, thank you. You may be seated. The court says, thank you, gentlemen. All right. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope lunch was okay. We are ready to continue. Mr. Luttrell. Mr. Luttrell says, thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I would like to publish to the jury copies of 223A and 223L that Dr. Kaur marked unrelating to injuries. The court says, okay, you may. They were published. Then Mr. Luttrell says, so each juror should have an A and a copy of an A and an L. Court says, okay, thank you. Do we need oh, okay, they're still going. I think we need one more in the back. Of which one, A or L? Unidentified juror says A. They were still passing out the photos. Court says A. We need one more A, please. Mr. McClellan says, we'll make an additional copy, Judge, and we'll have to ask the court to publish that. Court says, okay. Mr. McClellan says, we don't have an extra copy right now. Court says, okay. Where are we sort of back? Where are we short back here? Who didn't get it? Okay, so the gentleman in seat 12. Mr. McLeland says, so just one copy of A? Court says A. Mr. McLeland says, is that correct? Court says, right. And everybody else got L, right? Okay, perfect. We're in good shape then. All right. Thank you, Mr. Luttrell. You'll make that extra copy. Mr. Luttrell says, thanks. Yes. Anything else, Mr. Luttrell? No, Your Honor. The court says, all right. Mr. McLeland, you may call your next witness. McLeland says, thank you, Your Honor. The state of Indiana would call First Sergeant Christopher Cecil, please. The witness is sworn in, and now the direct examination begins of Christopher Cecil, and the questions will be by Mr. McLeland. Mr. Cecil, before we get started, I'm going to ask you to use your best outside voice when you're testifying. The microphone amplifies for the crowd, but it does not amplify for myself, the jury, or defense, and we all need to be able to hear you. Fair enough? Yes, sir. Okay, will you state your name for the record, please? Christopher Cecil. And will you spell your name for the record, please? And he does. And how are you employed? With the Indiana State Police. And what is your rank with the Indiana State Police? First Sergeant. First Sergeant Cecil, how long have you been in law enforcement? 20 years. And what is your role within the Indiana State Police currently? I'm the commander of the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Did you have to go through special education or training to be a law enforcement officer? Yes. And did you have to go through special training or schooling to be involved in the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and the commander of the ISP IPAC unit? Yes. First, Sergeant Cecil, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 224. Can you identify that, please? This is my CV. And does that document have a list of the various training, educational programs, and experience that you've had through your 20 years of law enforcement? Yes. Judge, the state would move to admit what's been marked as State's Exhibit 224, I believe. Yes, 224. No objection, says Ms. Auger. Court says, all right, without objection, 224 is admitted. McLeland says, in Your Honor, I'd ask permission to be able to publish that to the jury. She says you may. And it is. Was there enough copies for everybody on the jury, says Mr. McLeland. The court says yeah. Okay, First Sergeant Cecil, I want to direct your attention first to page 7 of your CV. After graduating high school, what did you do? I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And how long were you in the Marines? 4 years. And where did you go to college? University of Evansville. And did you graduate? Yes. And what kind of graduate level certificate did you have upon graduation? So I earned a graduate certificate in computer science, computer forensics. Sorry, computer forensics. And did you then proceed on to graduate school? Yes. And what are you currently in graduate school? Yes. And what is your major? Cyber crimes investigations. So he's currently getting a master's in cybercrime investigations. And when are you anticipating on graduating? December of this year, so he would have graduated last year. I now want to direct your attention to pages 7 through 11 of your CV. What additional training have you gone through involving computer forensics? I've been through multiple different vendors in computer and cell phone forensics, namely the National White Collar Center, Cellbrite, Magnet. And when you go through those different training seminars, are you trained and educated in how to use those various programs? Yes. And those pages 7 through 11 list the various vendors or various training you have on those various programs. Is that fair? Yes. And do you use this training and education to help you investigate criminal offenses through your employment with law enforcement? Yes. And have you examined or reviewed various digital evidence in other cases before? Yes. And just a rough estimate, how many other cases have you been involved in where you were tasked with examining or reviewing digital evidence? Hundreds. And I want to direct your attention to page 13 of your CV. Have you gone as far as to provide training and education to other law enforcement officers? I have. In what topics have you provided training and education to other law enforcement officers? Basics, cybercrime investigations, basic information on mobile device forensics and vehicle information, infotainment system forensics, child exploitation. Now, first, Sergeant Cecil, it's hard to say. Uh, I may ask you on occasion to give me a definition of a term you use or give a definition, or in basic terms, tell me what you're talking about. I am not a forensic examiner. I know very little about cell phones besides how to make calls and send text messages, take pictures, so I'm going to need you to dumb it down for me a little bit so that I can ask you questions. Fair enough? Yes, sir. So let's talk about the vehicle infotainment system. Just give me what do you mean when you say that infotainment, the vehicle infotainment system? That has to do with the your car that has a sort of like a computer inside of it. So we're talking about where you connect your cell phone to your car and you would be able to play music through it. You'd be able to take phone calls. So that concerns a forensic examination of that type of computerized device. And along with that information and training and education you give to other law enforcement officers. Well, let me back up. How often do you give that training to other law enforcement officers? Usually 2 or 3 times a year. And is that on a consistent yearly basis? It has been, yes. And have you testified in court before? Yes, I have. How many times, if you know, have you testified in court? Over 20. And in at least some of those instances, have you been declared an expert in the field of digital forensics? Yes. I want to draw your attention to 2019. How were you employed in 2019? I was a computer forensic examiner with the Indiana State Police. And as a digital forensic examiner, what were your duties in that role? I conducted digital forensics of cell phones, computers, and at times vehicle infotainment systems. And what unit were you with in 2019? The cybercrime unit. At some point in 2019, did you become involved in the investigation of the murder of Abby Williams and Libby German? Yes. And how did you become involved? The Indiana State Police had acquired a new piece of equipment called the Gray Key, which allowed law enforcement to be able to unlock Apple devices like iPads and iPhones. It also allowed law enforcement to gain access to information that was encrypted that law enforcement had never had access to from an Apple device. This information was critical for law enforcement. We never had seen anything like this before, and this piece of equipment allowed us to be able to take an investigation further. And then, as such, I volunteered to re examine Libby's iPhone 6S. I'm going to back you up just a little bit and make sure I understand. This is a new piece of equipment that ISP acquired, and did it allow you to get more information from an electronic device? Yes. And so it allowed you to get more information than the other programs and equipment and systems that you had prior to getting this? Yes. Okay. And you volunteered to re examine Libby's iPhone 6? Yes. And did you do that? Yes, I did. What did you do to examine that phone? So he is the one who examines Libby's phone. That is important. And as you may or may not recall, during the recaps of the trial, when people were reporting it, I reported on it on my channel that this witness, uh, I got, or maybe it wasn't this witness, but one of the witnesses, the forensic data expert witnesses, brings up the fact that they're, or on that, during their testimony, it comes up that the phone had something plugged into it and unplugged from it at some point. It had to have been manual, and these are all times that it took place after the times of death, supposedly, that the state is going with. So this witness is part of that conversation, at least in part that he did the forensic data download. What did you do to examine that phone? So, I performed a full file system extraction utilizing the gray key of her phone. Can you tell me what that means? So, full file system extraction is specialized digital technique that allows an examiner to extract the full contents of an Apple device. Contained within that contents are going to be active files, deleted files, system data, metadata. And devices like the gray key is one of the things that could be used to obtain this type of extraction. And is it fair to say Gray Key allowed you to capture more of that information than prior equipment and programs that you had? Yes. When you extract data using the Gray Key, what product do you get out? So you get a raw, comprehensive, detailed data extraction. And what do you do with that raw data? With that raw data, I can ingest it into computer forensic software like Cellbrite or Magnet, and then when I ingest it, I'm processing it. And part of the processing is also concerns praising which you're looking. It automatically is looking for information and putting it into human readable form. It's also file carding. So it's looking for deleted or lost data. And then it's also doing some analysis for the forensic examiner who is conducting the processing. And then from there, the investigator can conduct manual, deeper dives into the data once the process is completed or start generating reports for the investigator to review. So let me make sure I understand this. Gray key is a piece of equipment to use to get the information out of the phone. Is that correct? Yes, sir. But that information is not in a readable format, is that correct? It's in a readable format, but one that's not processed so everyone in the room would be able to understand what the contents are. So then do you take that information that Gray Key extracts and you plug that into other programs to make it readable? Yes. And then when you plug it into those other programs that make it readable, does that mean it makes it easier for, well, what does that mean when you say that it makes it readable? What it's doing is it's going through databases and it's putting it into human readable form so you understand what those databases contain, like dates and times, text messages, photos, video, internet history. It's putting all that together so you can actually be able to quickly review through it. Does it also separate that information into different logs? Yes. And so you would have various log titles, and underneath you would have the information that came from those logs. Is that a fair representation? Yes. Once you get it into the readable format, what do you do next? So I could do one of two things. I could just generate reports, or I can mainly go through and look at it and compare both softwares together side by side and validating my findings and just looking at the data, see what's there. Which one did you do in this case? Did you just print the report, produce the report, and pass it on, or did you perform the analysis yourself? I performed an analysis. And when did you start that analysis? June 26th, 2019. And when were you completed with that analysis? August 21st, 2019. So, this is not a situation where you look at a report, look at what you see, and then produce your findings immediately. This takes you some time. Yes. Once you extracted the data from Libby's phone, tell me specifically what you did in this case. What did you do with that data? Once it was extracted using Gray Key, what did you do next? Again, I ingested it into Magnet and Cellbrite and allowed it to process. And then once it's processed, I went through and looked at the data, analyzing, utilizing both of them. I used both tools because there is no end all be all. There is no one tool that's better than all. I have to have both of them to be able to do this examination and analysis thoroughly. And when you looked at that data in 2019, what data range or date range or what time period did you look at? I specifically looked at February 13th, 2017. Why did you pick that date to look at? Based on the information that I was provided by the investigators, I knew that Libby and Abby were out on the Monon High Trail on that day, and then I knew that Libby had recorded a video depicting Abby and a person who was believed to be her abductor walking across the Monon High Bridge Trail. So, what was your goal with examining the cell phone in 2019? What were you trying to do? I was trying to establish like a sequence of events, a chronological timeline, and compare what was going on the phone, what Libby or whoever was using the phone in comparison to also what was going on behind the scenes with the phone. So I'm trying to be very, very thorough. I'm trying to compare data, trying to establish a timeline that may help the investigators. And through that process, did you generate a report? I did. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 225. Can you tell the jury what that is? This is the first report I completed in 2019. And it has your name on it. Is that correct? Yes. And it has the date that you finished the analysis. Is that correct? Correct. Can you give me that date again, please? August 21st, 2019. Judge, the state would move to admit what's been marked as State's Exhibit 225. Ms. Auger has no objection. Court says it's admitted without objection. And Your Honor, the state would ask permission uh, to publish. She says you may. He says the wrong words though. First Sergeant, he first said, may we report or that exhibit, sorry. He was trying, sorry. He said, may we publish the report, but it's not a report. Whatever. Okay. First Sergeant Cecil, before you testified in court today, you had an opportunity to review this report. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And you went through that report and in anticipation for questions that you might be asked today. Is that right? Yes, sir. And on the report that you reviewed, did you make notes, highlights, and comments that would assist you in testifying today? Yes. And have you provided that to the state of Indiana in this binder? Yes. And would looking at that report and your notes and highlights, would that assist you in testifying today and answering various questions from the state? Yes. Judge, the state would ask permission to allow the witness to review his report in this binder to assist him in testifying. Court says, okay, that's fine. Mr. McLeland continues, First Sergeant Cecil, I want to go through your report and I'm going to attempt to stand up here to do this and we'll see how it goes. Do you recognize this as the first page of your report? Yes. And so this is what is produced after you take the raw data and plug it into the various programs, Cellbrite, Magnet. This was my written report. Yes. Okay. And the report in summary, what does that give you? What is produces? What is this in this report? What's in this report? A summary of my findings. And so I want to draw your attention to the first page of the report, and I want to go through that sorry, I'm going to scroll down. I want to draw your attention to, looks like page 5 of your report. Can you turn to that page, please? Yes, sir. Can you explain to the jury what information is on this page? Starting with the top, what does that information tell you? That's the first thing is the cybercrime unit case number, and then we have the state police case number and then the date, then the date that I began the examination. And it gives you a short introduction. Is that correct? Yes. And then it identifies the piece of electronics that you're examining. Is that right? Yes. In this case, a gray smartphone inside a slim burgundy rubber Harry Potter phone case. I'm not going to try to pronounce the other name of it. Is that correct? Yes. I want to move on to the next page. The next page shows a picture not of the phone you examined, but a stock photo. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And then we get into what you actually did and the information about the phone and what you did to get the information off the phone. Is that correct? Correct. And so when we talk about this forensic acquisition of data, tell me about that portion of the report. So here, I'm describing what type of extraction I obtained from Libby's iPhone, and then I also talk about the SIM card. And so the SIM card is the next section. Is that correct? Correct. And does that give you a summary of what you did to download information off or extract information off the SIM card? It talks about the contents of the SIM card and what it is. Then, as we move to the next section on page 8, it talks about the user account information. Yes. Can you explain to the jury what that is? So, this would have been the user account information that would have been found on Libby's phone. And what did that user account information tell you as you reviewed it? It told me that at least two people were using this phone. At least two people were using this phone. And which two people were using the phone? Libby and Abby. And how did you come to that conclusion? Much of the user account information is attributed to those two young girls. And can you see that user account information in this section of your report? Yes. And when you say user account information, do you mean, for example, lg@icloud.com? Yes. Is that what you consider user account information? Yes. And so you're basing your belief on this user account information that you see in this section of your report. Is that correct? Correct. I want to move on to page 9 when it talks about biometric data and specifically Touch ID. Can you tell the jury about about what information is in that portion of your report? Touch ID has to do with phone because it had Touch ID. It was a feature. He does not explain. He'll just basically reiterate what the question was. At least here he says it was a feature that was common with the Apple iPhone 6s, and I determined that there were three biometric fingerprints that were saved to it: right, left, and Abby. So Libby's right and left, and then Abby had a thumbprint too. Are you able to acquire that information from your extraction? Is that correct? Yes. I want to move on to the section that says Health, Apple Health, or Apple Health Application, page 9. Can you tell the jury what information is within the Apple Health application? So, Apple Health is an app. It's a factory app that is on iPhone starting with iOS 8 and newer. So, any phone that would have supported iOS 8 has Apple Health. And what it does is aggregates information from applications or other Apple devices that you may have connected it. That could be your watch, an iPad, or a tablet, and it's health data that it aggregates together into a repository which is within the Apple Health data. So the other things that it's also tracking too is walking distance, distances that you've walked and elevation changes. And is this always on? It's always on. Does the user of an iPhone have to do anything to turn this on initially? No. Is it always working in the background? Yes. So it's always tracking. Well, refresh my memory. What is it tracking? It tracks a user's steps, calculates distance, and it changes in elevation. And I want to draw your attention to this portion of the report in regards to this iPhone that you were examining. What were you able to determine from the the nope, from the health app data in this phone? I was able to determine some steps and some distances that were walked or ran and changes in elevation. So it not only gives you the activity, meaning that what the person was doing, it also gives you a value and of what they're doing. So a value, like a number of steps or something. Correct. And how is that value measured? So steps. Your iPhone has what we call an accelerometer, a triaxle accelerometer, and it has a gyroscope. It's built in, it's always on. So when you're walking, it's detecting your steps as you walk. And then your iPhone, it's a computer, so it's trying to calculate how far you walk based on the number of steps it detected. And it also gives you a start and end time. Is that correct? Correct. So when I'm walking, if I have a phone and I'm walking, is there equipment within the phone that tracks that? Yes. And is that the equipment you're talking about? The accelerometer and barometer and all those fancy words you used? Yes. And that tracks the steps and the meters that I travel. Correct. It also tracks the time and date when I traveled. Correct. And again, specifically, you're looking at February 13th of 2017 in this extraction. Is that correct? Yes. Tell the jury, what did you find in the health app data for February 13th of 2017? So the first line, actually, there is an error, a mistake that I need to correct. So if you look at the end time, February 13th, 2017, 14:18:48. It should be 14:08:48. So the very first line in his report is an error. So this area right here, yes. And why is that messed up? It's a typo. And you'll see a continuation of where the starts back up again for the walking in the next line. It starts at 14:08:08. So this should be 14:08:48. Correct. In direct lineation with the next line underneath it. Correct? Correct. Okay, so tell the jury what you found from the information that you viewed on the health app. I collected, or it's the forensic software's calculated the number of steps that was walked with the phone and the distance. And it gives you the time, correct? The time that you started walking, the time that the person stopped walking. It gives you a range. When you say start walking and stop walking, this is a silly question, but at those times, does that mean the phone is moving? Yes. Time is 13:31:40. That's military time, correct? Yes. Can you convert that to a standard time, please? 1:33:40 p.m. So at 1:31, did I say 3? 1:31:40 p.m. 1:31:40 p.m. The phone moves 1,682 steps. Yes. When does that movement stop? At 2:18:48 or 14:18. Excuse me, 14:08:48. So he just said the error that he said he needed to correct. He said it with the error. Will you convert that to standard time, please? 2:08:48 p.m. Do you mind just converting that to standard time from here on out for us? Yes, sir. I don't know military time, so I want to make sure I have the right times. Yes, sir. So, when did the movement stop? It stopped at 2:08:48. Did the movement pick back up again? Yes. When? At 2:08:48. How does it stop and start at the same second? And how far did the phone move? 414.38 meters. And when did that stop? At 18:48 p.m. and then picked up again at 2:22 p.m. Is that correct? Yes. And then when did that end? At 2:32:39. Now this last line says flights climbed. Can you explain that to the jury? So that's an elevation change. There are things in the phone that will register when you change elevation? Yes. And so did the phone change elevation in this case? Yes. When did it change elevation? At 2:31:22. That's the date and time. And how much elevation did it change? What does the report say? Let's start there. It says 2 floors. Do you know how much distance 2 floors are? I learned later on what the distance is in my next report. Okay, but at the time of this report, you didn't have a calculation of what the distance was for 2 floors. Correct. Okay, 2:32:39 p.m. Last movement of the phone, correct? Correct. In your report that you did in 2019, was there any other information within the health app data that showed movement of the phone? No. So from this information, what conclusion did you come to? I concluded that the phone stopped moving at 2:32 and 39 seconds in the afternoon of February 13th, 2017. Had the phone moved after that, would it have registered in the app? Yes. How do you know that? Because the Apple Health app data is always on, and the triaxial accelerometer, the gyroscope, is always detecting movement. What if my phone is still waiting? Will it detect movement? No. I'm sorry. I said still waiting. I said what he said is, what if my phone is sitting still? Will it detect movement? No. What if my phone is on the console of my car? Will it detect movement? It could. How could it? If the car runs over a bump or something that could cause it to jump, bounce. Another silly question, if the phone moves, does health app data record that movement? Yes. Whether the phone's dropped, bounced, walked, whatever the case may be. Yes. Okay. I want to move on to 219. We've talked about knowledge C, database analysis. We've talked about it with other witnesses. Explain to the jury this section of your report. So, Knowledge C is an important database for investigations because it's logging activity that your phone's doing. Some of this is activity that you're not even aware of that it's logging. So, this is a database that's very volatile. The information doesn't stay there too long, and it's logging activity like something as simple as when your phone lights up, when it lights, when it dims down, when you lock it, when it locks. Very, very simple things. 2019, you were aware that Knowledge C database information existed? Yes. Remember, they didn't know of its existence back in 2017 when they did the initial reports. When did you become aware in your career that this information was available? Since 2018. However, the science behind it wasn't fully developed at the time, it was just becoming known to law enforcement. The science behind it. Are you saying that before 2019, the extraction community didn't know about Knowledge C information? Correct. So the program that you had to make the extraction information is readable formats, in readable formats. Did it have areas within those programs for Knowledge C information? Sir, I don't understand your question. That was pretty funny. Sir, I don't understand. Fine. It was a horrible question. Let me re-ask it. Prior to 2019, prior to getting Gray Key, what is the program that you primarily used within the Indiana State Police to extract information from phones? It would have been Cellbrite, UFED, or Universal Forensic Extraction Device. And what device and that device and that program, did it grab knowledge C information from the devices you were extracting? No. Is Gray Key the first equipment program that you had that would grab that knowledge C information? Yes. And it would turn the knowledge C information into readable information? Yes. Objection leading. I'll rephrase the question, Judge. Rephrase it. What would Gray Key do with the knowledge C information once it was extracted from the phone? Gray Key's pulling it out, and then you're using software to process it to put it in human readable form. Now, back to your report. In this section of your report, you have a list of various things here. Can you explain what this list of things are to the jury? From my research at the time, these are just some of the things that Knowledge C logged or it could detect. And then what is the next part of your report that we get into? This is a timeline that I developed utilizing Knowledge C and some other activity on Libby's phone at the time. And when do you start your timeline? Start my timeline at 1:38:49 p.m. on February 13th. And what does this timeline give the jury an idea of what information is in this timeline? So we're talking about phone calls when the phone was plugged in and charging, so we're getting battery power. But you're able to go further than that, correct? Yes. What other things are you able to see and that you are able to put in this timeline? I could see that she's or someone is utilizing different applications like Snapchat, and then they've created a snap, created a picture. So you're able to get phone calls that are coming into the phone during the time period? Correct. You're able to get whether or not the phone is plugged in and charging? Yes. You're able to get whether or not the user is viewing posts on various applications? Yes. You also have a battery life, is that correct? Yes. And this timeline progresses through the day, is that correct? Yes. I want to focus your attention on February 13th at 1:41:44 p.m. What is the phone doing at that time? There's a picture, a snap, that's posted to Snapchat. This is the picture of Abby on the bridge, I believe, that Libby posted on her Snapchat. And does that entry mean that this phone posted a picture to Snapchat? Yes. Were you able to find that picture on the phone? Yes. Were you able to find it? Where were you able to find it? I found it within the Snapchat application. I want to move on to February 13th at 1:43:59 p.m. Can you tell me what's going on with the phone at that point? There's another snap or another picture from Snapchat. And can you describe the picture that you were able to see that was posted on Snapchat? It's a picture depicting a close up of Libby German wearing a tie dyed t shirt with a silk screen print of surfers on the front. She's got a grin on her face. Abby Williams was in the background over Libby's shoulder wearing a burgundy shirt, gray hooded jacket, and it appeared to be taken inside of an automobile. You might have seen this picture. It's like a selfie of Libby and Abby's in the back seat and this is on the way to Monon High Bridge in Kelsey's car. And I want to say that it doesn't really look like Libby's got a grin. She looks more maybe annoyed or like kind of smirking or something. Like I don't know. I don't know what was going on there, but I don't think she was grinning. Anyways, um, he continues on and says, Abby's wearing a seatbelt and appeared to be looking directly at the camera, and she had what appeared to be a blank expression on her face. A blank expression. Now, how precise are these times that you have on this timeline? Precise. Where did you get those times? Those are going to be logged in the Knowledge C. So it's coming right from the phone? Yes. I want to draw your attention to February 13th of 2017, 2:05:10 p.m. Can you tell me what happened with the phone at that time? This is another snap or another picture from Snapchat. And were you able to find the picture on the phone? Yes. And what did that picture depict? Depicted the Mononhigh Trail Bridge, likely prior to somebody walking across it. I wanted to direct your attention to 213 of 2017 at 2:07:20 p.m. What happened on the phone at that point? That was the last time the phone was unlocked. And what happened at 2:13:51 p.m. on that day? A video was recorded. And what does the video? Have you had an opportunity to watch the video? I have watched the video. And what does the video depict? It depicts Abby walking across the bridge and a person walking behind her across the bridge. This is Bridge Guy video they're talking about. And how long is this video? 43 seconds. And is there anything that happens after the video stops? What is the next entry after the video stops? Someone tried to biometric unlock the phone. What does that mean, tried? But were unsuccessful? Someone tried to unlock it. Okay. When does the video stop? At 2:14:34 seconds. And when does someone try to unlock the phone? 2:14:41. Were they successful in unlocking the phone? No. I want to move down to 2:32:39 p.m. What happens then? That's the last recorded movement of the phone. And is that information gathered from the health app data? Yes. Does the phone move after that? No. Now, you have in your report at 10:32:26 p.m. was the last recorded data received from the iPhone. Is that correct? Yes. I wonder. I wonder if the defense was ever able to actually do their own extraction of this phone. I wonder if there was more movement on the phone that maybe the state was hiding from the defense and the jury. Because it doesn't make sense that it would be plugged in and unplugged, yet it doesn't move after the 2:32:39. But we know it gets plugged in and unplugged something into the auxiliary cord. It could be a headphone, could be it was plugged into a car or something, a speaker, I don't know. But definitely manual plugging in and unplugging something took place on that phone. But there's nothing to plug it in there at, perhaps. So you would think that it was moved to that location later after all those plugging in and unplugging of things. Just my little thought there. Does the phone move after that? He says no. Now, you have in your report at 10:32:26 was the last recorded data received from the iPhone. Is that correct? Yes. And you have in here the phone's battery was likely depleted. Is that correct? Yes. Knowing what you know now, is that information correct? No. We're going to come back to that in your next report. So he has a second report where he changes his opinion. Okay, that's not suspicious. Want to move on to this report, and we're almost to the end here. Want to talk about the mobile analysis worksheet. The device description, self explanatory, talks about the condition of the device when you got it. Is that correct? Yes. And then this page 13 of the report, what is that describing? It shows the different hardware and software that was used to complete the analysis back in 2019. Once you did this analysis, what did you do next? I provided the reports to the investigators. And again, that was in 2019, is that correct? Yes. As time progresses, do your capabilities with extractions, do they change? Extractions. Let me back up. That was a bad question. As time progresses, are programs, service providers, are they continuing to update their equipment and programs? Yes. Why do they do that? So, software developers update their programs because it's competition, it's about money, and also what drives this is feedback and support from the digital forensic community. And so, as time goes on, do new programs, new hardware come out that allow you to extract more data from an electronic device? Yes. Between 2019 and 2024, do you continue to get updates on how those programs change? Yes. So, what programs in 2019 are you using to extract data to make this report? Cellbrite and Magnet. Those are like the two biggies in the industry there. And between 2019 and 2024, did you get any updates to those programs? Answer that first. Did you get any updates to those programs? Yes. And what do those updates do? What's the point of those updates? Those are software updates that would allow decoding of more data from different devices, whether it's a cell phone or a computer, because applications are changing. So you may have an application like Facebook that where one day it's written in one code, but then the next time Facebook updates the app, it may be written differently. So software developers have to constantly stay up on how programs or how applications are changed so they can be able to parse this information and get it to whoever is using their software. Do these updates allow you to extract more or less data from an electronic device? It allows you to decode more information from an electronic device. And so, did that occur in this instance that by 2024, through an updated program software that would allow you to decode more information? Yes. And so, what did you do? So I updated Magnet and Cellbrite, and then I reprocessed the original extraction that I did in 2019 with the newly updated software. Why did you do that? Because I wanted to see what new information potentially I could decode I didn't know about. And I knew from experience that the digital forensic community derives the software developers, and I wanted to be able to see if there's something else that maybe I overlooked. And did you perform a new extraction on Libby's iPhone? No. What did you do? I just reprocessed the original extraction. So the original raw data that you had from the extraction, you just reprocessed that? Yes. Did you, in 2024 or sometime between 2019 and 2024, did you compare that raw data to other raw data that had been extracted from the phone? I did. Sorry, you have to rephrase that question. The raw data that you had in 2024 that you reprocessed, you were aware that Lieutenant Bunner had also extracted data from the phone? I was aware. And did you have access to that data? I had access. And did you compare the data that he extracted in 2017 to the data that you extracted in 2019? No. Did you compare to the data that you extracted in 2000 or that you used in 2024? Yes. Tell me about that. What did you find? So I took only his first extraction from 2017, the first one that I did. The method one extraction? Correct. Okay. And what did you do with method one extraction? I reviewed through it to help to write my second report. And can you expand on that a little bit? What did you do to help you write that second report? I reviewed through the timeline that had been developed from the Cellbrite extraction to help me write my report because I knew that at some point during Lieutenant Bunner's examination later in the 3 weeks he had connected it to the cell phone network. So I knew there was more data I knew there was more data that had been added to the phone that wasn't originally on there on 2015 on February 15th. And this data that you comprised in your second report, was it different than the data that Lieutenant Bunner gathered in 2017? I'm sorry, you have to repeat that again. Sure. The data that you collected to form your second report, was it different than the data that was collected by Lieutenant Bunner in 2017? No. Then why the need for the new report? I got more system information that Lieutenant Bunner didn't have. That is the need for a new report? Yes. So the information's not different, you just got more of it. Correct. Okay, let me back up. It's if that's true, were you able to compare the information that Lieutenant Bunner gathered to the information that you gathered? Yes. Was there any difference between the two? No. Were they mathematically equal? You'll have to rephrase that question. Let me just strike the question. Let me back up. So, even though Lieutenant Bunner, you noted that Lieutenant Bunner connected the phone to the network? Yes. When he did that, did he change the data in the phone? It added more information to the phone. Did it change the data that he had previously collected? No. First, Sergeant Cecil, I want to now go through your second report, talk about the information that you gathered in your second report. First, I want to start off with when did you begin the analysis this second time around? May 10th of 2024. And when did you end it? August 18th, 2024. So you took nearly 3 months or just over 3 months to go through the information before you created this report? Yes. And what kind of things are you using to analyze the information that you extracted or that you gathered? Sorry. So I'm using, these are forensic software like Cellbrite and Magnet. I'm also utilizing some other open source digital forensic tools that that are recognized in the digital forensic community. And then I did research. I had to go through and look at various different white papers, do research, what Apple would say regarding certain things that they've been able to confidently or comfortably provide it to the public about their device. So, a lot of it was research, looking at what other researchers had done, what they had tested, because a lot of these things I can't go back and test. So I'm relying on other people's information to kind of complete this examination. And did you find additional information? Did you find information in addition to your first report? Yes. And so let's focus first on page 4 of your second report. Do you have, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. McLeland says, sorry, I got ahead of myself, Judge. I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 227. Can you identify that? Yes. And is this the second report that we've been referring to? Yes. And is your name on that report? Yes, it is. And when did you complete the report? August 18th, 2024. Judge, the state would move to admit what's been marked as States Exhibit 227 into evidence. No objection. Without objection, it's admitted. And Judge, I'd ask permission to publish that to the jury again. You may, or in addition. First Sergeant Cecil, I want to draw your attention first to page 4, and I want to go through this report in the same fashion as we did in the last one, and hopefully it'll be a little quicker, but you start with introduction, and then you identify some mistakes and misprints you made. Yes. Tell me about those. So the first mistake identified was I mistakenly said that Libby's phone in 2019 had been unlocked by Cellbrite, and that's incorrect. Well, I would say law enforcement had her passcode, so that's incorrect. And so the statement you corrected, the phone was opened with the passcode, not using Cellbrite? Correct. What was the next correction? The next correction is regarding the Apple Health data where I made the typo and it should have been 20848 on February 13th, the end date. And then what is the last correction that you have there? The last one is my premature conclusion that the last recorded activity of the iPhone was at 10:32:26 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. And then I want to move on. You then talk about knowledge C information at the bottom of page 3 and then into page 4. Can you explain that to the jury, please? So, I go a little bit more in depth in the knowledge C because when I did the original extraction in 2019, a lot more information is out there that we could find. So, a lot more. It's been more thorough. So, I'm providing some more information about what knowledge C does, what it contains, what types of records of user activities that it's collecting, and I talk about how it's usually collecting 1 month of records, which is typically most useful for investigations and for trying to, like, basically develop a timeline of events or trying to get a pattern of life of the person who's using the device. And then on page 4, what does that explain in regards to the knowledge C information? These are just some events. It's not an exhaustive list. This is just some events that Knowledge C is tracking on a person's Apple device. Now, you said Knowledge C information is volatile? Yes. What do you mean by that? So, what that means is some of this information can be stored for a few months, a few weeks. Some of it can persist a little longer or a lot longer. So, it's just whenever the phone decides it wants to delete it or when new information comes in and overwrites it. In page 5 of your report, is this the type of information that would be contained in Knowledge C databases? Yes. And is that the kind of information that you would consider volatile? Yes. And so that is that information that may be deleted as part of the Knowledge C database? Yes. This may be a complicated question, but is in the Knowledge C database, if you know, when a new entry is logged, is the oldest entry deleted? It's a first in, first out. Well, explain that to me. So the first entry in later on, at some point, that's going to be the first one that leaves, goes. I don't see listed on this list pictures and videos from the camera roll. Are pictures and videos from the camera roll, are they included in the Knowledge C information? They could be in the sense that like the camera application was being used, but the actual pictures and videos, no. Explain that to me a little bit. Make sure I got it right. So, pictures and videos are not stored in Knowledge C. This is just tracking user activity. It could track that someone used a camera, but it's not going to track that. It's not going to save the pictures and video. So, Knowledge C would track that the camera was used, but wouldn't track what the product from the camera? Correct. Right. This is true that when, well, do you lose Knowledge C information when the phone is turned on and turned off? You could. Pictures and videos aren't part of Knowledge C information. You testified to that, correct? Yes. You so would those be lost as part of the Knowledge C information when the phone is turned on and off? It depends. Well, explain that to me. So, if it's internet cache, it could be deleted, but if it's something that a user created, it's going to stay there. What would something that a user created? Give me an example of something a user created. It'd be a picture or a video that was recorded with the phone and it's saved to the camera roll. So pictures and videos in the camera roll, would those be user created? Yes. So would those be deleted as part of Knowledge C when the phone is turned off and on? No. Let's move on to health app data. Is that part of Knowledge C information? No. Is that something that would be deleted when a phone is turned on and off as part of the Knowledge C information? No. What about, well, let me back up. I want to focus on your report again, and I want to focus your attention. I'm going to scroll through here. We come to the health app data on page 7 of your report. Besides the correction that you made from your 2019 report, was there any additional information that you gathered from the health app data information? No. And so everything you gathered in this report, was it the same as to the last report? Yes. Was the information you gathered in this report more extensive than the last report? Yes. How so? I go through and do a little research on how an iPhone is calculating steps based off of research done by various individuals around the world. Can you give me a brief summary of what your research showed? So, in a controlled environment, steps are pretty accurate. The distance calculated by your phone, if it's short, it's pretty close to how far a person would have walked or run. But if it's longer, there is an underestimation by your Apple device. And with that, I'm going to stop right here because I have a physical therapy appointment that I have to stop and get to. So I'm going to stop right here for today. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, it just is the way it is. And we will continue. I like to go a little longer. So we will continue where I left off next time. And I will see you guys then. Thank you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you. And please hit the like button on your way out. Take care, guys. Bye.